2026 marks the centennial of the Mother Road, Route 66, and Missouri has a lot to see. I'm Lisa Oligas, and this is Newsmakers. The goal of the Route 66 centennial is to celebrate and commemorate the historic milestone of the 100th anniversary of Route 66. And while honoring the road, help the millions who live, work, and travel along it. Today, we will talk with the Vice President of the Route 66 Association of Missouri and learn about local history, Route 66 projects, and hear stories of some of the great characters to meet along the way as you explore the route that stretches from Chicago to LA. Our guest today is Jeremy Morris, the VP of the Route 66 Association of Missouri and a resident of Red Oak 2 in Carthage, Missouri. Jeremy, welcome to Newsmakers.
Thanks for having me, Lisa.
So let's talk the history of Route 66
Yes.
to get us started, particularly in Missouri. Now, we've talked with Kansas folks where it's a very short stretch of road, miles-wise. Sunflower State only has like 13.2 miles.
13.2, and the point 2 is very important to them.
Yes, I'm sure it is because
Yes.
they don't have much space.
Right.
But Missouri has like more than 300 miles. Tell us about.
We have 317 miles. So just a brief overview of 66. You know, in 1926, the federal highway system's created, and they start numbering highways. And before that, prior to that, it was just named highways like the Jefferson or the Lincoln Highway. And so Cyrus Avery, one of the road commissioners, sent a famous telegram from Springfield, Missouri, proclaiming that we would be 66.
Cool.
Originally it was supposed to be 60, and some of the original maps actually still say 60, but a politician in Kentucky made sure they got 60. But 66 was fortuitous because it's known worldwide, and it's probably the most famous road in the entire world. It goes from, we call it pier to pier. So the Chicago Navy Pier to the Santa Monica Pier, covering 8 states and about 2,500 miles, which is about a tenth around the equator. So it's a lot of space.
Yeah.
Missouri in particular has 317 miles on average. And it's considered a national byway, and it's also an all-American road, which is the highest designation you can receive for a road.
It kind of runs diagonally across the state of Missouri. I grew up in St. Louis. I know it passes through there. But what are some popular stops? And of course, Joplin has always been listed. You know, we always hear it in the song about
Joplin's actually made
66.
the song, the Bobby Troop song, and
Yeah.
of course Nat King Cole popularized it too. But you know, it comes through Illinois, through St. Louis, and kind of ends in Joplin. Kind of parallels 44, but instead of a super slab going right through the mountains in the Ozark Plateau, it winds through the villages and around. That's the way Route 66 is. It's a journey through the woods and around the rivers and that sort of thing. But popular stops, of course, you're going to see the Arch. You're going to see a couple of big cities. Springfield has the Galois Theater. Every state kind of has its own identity, too. So Illinois is the land of refurbished gas stations. Then you get to Missouri, and it's kind of the land of neon motels. So you have the Munger Moss in Lebanon. You have the Wagon Wheel in Cuba, must-see stops. You have the
Boots Motel in
Court.
Carthage.
I used to run that place. It's located at the Crossroads of America.
And it's very cool.
Very cool. They
very,
just
very
replaced
cool.
the neon and got a couple of murals. But you have to see all those spots, of course. Cuba's the land of murals, a giant rocking chair and fanning, so on and so forth.
Neat little stops along the way.
Plenty.
So what is the committee doing to prepare for the centennial? I guess like signage is a big thing to make sure people know where to go to find the route.
So for the centennial, that's the 100th anniversary of the pavement itself. And of course, I always say the road's much older than the pavement. It has a long history as far as it used to be a wagon trail. It was a Civil War trail. If you go back to 1826, 100 years prior, it was actually an Osage walking trail. We've even found archaeological digs of mastodon bones along the route. So it's a primal road. It's a natural path through the Ozarks. But as far as the association currently, what we're doing to celebrate that 100th anniversary, we own a bridge. MoDOT gave us the Gasconade Bridge near Hazel Green, Missouri. And we are going to build our own giant in the Ozarks called Ferris the Troll. We're working on that now. We hopefully will have it done in a year's time for next summer.
So what is Ferris the Troll?
He's a 20-foot troll that's going to be under the bridge. You can see it from 44 and Route 66 currently. So it's going to be just another roadside attraction. Oklahoma is the land of giants. They have tons of muffler men and Tulsa.
Right.
We need a giant, but we need an Ozark giant. So he's going to be kind of a rusty steel Ozark troll.
And so this was an abandoned bridge, or
it was
how
a
did
bridge
you get
that they were going to decommission, they were going to destroy and tear down. We wanted to save it because it's a rare steel truss bridge that we thought was worth saving. That's what we do. We preserve, enhance, and promote in the association, and we want to preserve any sites we can along the route.
So that Gasconade Bridge is all along the route?
It's along the route. It's around the original stretch. You used to be able to drive over it. We're going to turn it into a pedestrian bridge because it's probably, once we redeck it and we get the money for that, and we're a nonprofit, so we're gathering funds for that and grants. We're going to create the troll underneath and the walking bridge on top. As far as signage, we just got HB 996 through, which is a big deal because we used to have to replace the signs along the route, which there are like 600 using our funds, which are very limited. And we have like, a team of like 6 volunteers that really run the association.
Right, right.
But now the governor signed it into law, and MoDOT's responsible for replacing. 66 signs are destroyed by weather. They're stolen as much as, I think Elvis Presley Boulevard is the only one that's stolen more than Route 66 signs. And so they disappear. So they're going to be in charge of replacing those for the next year.
Will they be centennial oriented when they put the new ones up?
They're just going to, it's the 100th anniversary, so they're going to be the blue signs, the blue byway signs. And we might add a little line below for All-American Road, because that's an important status that not every road has. You have to have 2, what they call intrinsic qualities to have that, which is for us historical and cultural.
Okay.
And so that's a very important part of what we're doing next year for the Centennial. Also events. We're going to have events up and down the corridor. Here's a little plug for the association page, Missouri66.org. Go to the events page, and you're going to see events all up and down our corridor, including into Kansas and Oklahoma. We're going to have some motor tours through here. We're going to have, at my roadside attraction that I live in, I'm one of the 9 owners of a place called Red Oak 2.
Right.
We're going to have Katrina Parks, a filmmaker for PBS. She's going to actually do her traveling exhibit show there. So a lot of stuff planned.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you don't really have a lot of funding. It's a not-for-profit.
Right.
But you do something to raise funds, and that's special license plates. So show us one of those.
So thanks for that plug.
Tell us about that, yeah.
This is our biggest revenue source. So there's 200 vanity plates you can get in the state. But if you want to show your pride for Route 66, you can get this. Go to our website, again, Missouri66.org. Click on, I think it's Projects Plates. We'll do all the paperwork for you. You just pay $50 and you get a plate. I've got mine on my car. Of course, it says Parson because I'm known as the Parson on the route. And it'll be shipped to your local DMV, and you can have a plate. We receive about half the revenue for the association for this. So this is going to be our big push for the year.
Yeah. So, I know someone from the Kansas Centennial was on our show and said they didn't really have a lot of, there's some grants, but not a lot. Does it help that the Kansas stretch in southeast Kansas embraces Route 66 history as well?
Absolutely. So
even though they're small?
Correct. They're 13.2. Don't forget the .2.
Yeah.
Galena will tell you that. So from St. Louis to Springfield, there's kind of its own vibe. It's that's the Ozark Plateau. When you get from Springfield to Veneta, Oklahoma, things change. The landscape changes. So you're more in the mining district. You're more in the plains now. We even have our own map, the Tri-State Corridor map that was recently commissioned. That's a new map that you can see in local attractions. So yeah, it's important that we're actually part of a piece through Oklahoma, all the way, I'd say, to Veneta.
Yeah. So recently, just the other day, the Leadership Joplin Class of 2025 commissioned a mural that celebrates Joplin's history. It sits adjacent to Mural Park in Joplin, where there are Route 66 murals. How do murals make a difference to tourism on the route? How do they kind of help?
Yeah, murals are almost like a scavenger hunt for roadies. We love them.
Yeah.
And so there's some new ones in this area. Baxter Springs just made a giant one on the way into town. It's several walls wide. I don't know what the square footage is. That was late last year.
And Galena has a badge one going into there.
Correct.
Which is kind of a painted
Yeah,
badge.
Galena has one just right on the, that tells you where to turn.
Makes for a great photo op.
It's a great photo op. People love that just for that reason. It beautifies some downtowns that might need restoration and paints a kind of an inexpensive way of doing that. There's a great new Andy Thomas mural in downtown Joplin that was just commissioned recently.
Okay.
So a lot of new murals, definitely.
Yeah. So you're in a community that's sort of off or adjacent to Route 66.
Right.
It's part of a debate. So what is the connection of Red Oak to Route 66?
Sure. Well, we'll call it a side trip because there's the purists. And, you know, Route 66, when people are newbies to Route 66, they don't realize there's lots of different alignments. There's not just 166. Sometimes there's a 1920s version, like the Okies that went west in Grapes of the Wrath. There's also a 1950s version, like the TV show, you know, and convertibles going down neon highways. But Red Oak 2 is about 1.5 miles off the pavement itself. We considered it part of the corridor. There's a lot of ish in Route 66 world.
Right.
You know, the totem poles in Oklahoma, they're 4 miles off, but everybody considers them part of Route 66. They're an attraction that fits the mold.
Right.
And so Red Oak 2 is a community I live in. I'm one of 9 owners. It was created by Lowell Davis. He was a local artist, sculptor, painter, mostly a painter, but he made his money off these farm figurines and made a town in a cornfield. He basically preserved all these historic buildings, including the birthplace of Belle Star, Bandit Queen of the West,
So we're
and
going to do a whole
others.
video package telling you all
Perfect.
about that. But are you guys getting ready for the centennial? I
Yes.
mean, you get visitors all the time.
Yes.
Do you expect things to really
So
increase?
the
during
numbers
centennial?
we're hearing are that tourism is supposed to go up about 300% through the corridor. So a lot of these small towns probably aren't ready for this influx of new people. And about 60% of our traffic is international. So a lot of people domestically are starting to learn about us. But I get about 60 countries in my yard every year, every summer. And they're mostly traveling east to west. It's about 95% of the traffic. And they know the names of our dogs. And they know the names. It's a weird, like, non-celebrity celebrity culture where a mile away people don't know who you are, but on the route, everybody knows the barber of Seligman, Arizona, Angel Delgadillo, or Mike Wallace, the sheriff
Yeah.
from Cars.
So we're going to talk about some of those characters after we
Sure.
take a break. Thanks, Jeremy. We're going to take a break, and Jeremy gave us a tour of the history-rich Red Oak 2. We're going to find out more about it. Let's take a look. Signs and metal art created by artist Lowell Davis point the way to a popular stop for Route 66 travelers, Red Oak 2. Slightly off the Mother Road, it's much more than a themed attraction. It's a journey into the past that's being preserved by property owners and a handful of residents who call Red Oak 2 their hometown now.
People ask me, what is Red Oak 2? And I always say, well, I'm not sure. I've been here for 10 years. I'm still learning myself, but it's an ongoing art project. Lowell Davis wanted to make an art project you could walk through, like a 3D painting. It's historical preservation. We move buildings here and we try to save them, mostly of some kind of historical importance.
Morris lives in a building known as the Parsonage, not originally from the town of Red Oak.
But we actually know the least about this house other than it's from Carthage. It was on Grand Street, and it's probably originally built in the 1890s. The parsonage, of course, is where the preacher lives for the church. It was also a brothel at one time in the 1930s. A little colorful history there. I moved in at 2016, and I met Lowell on his porch, and we had a conversation, and I think it was more a job interview than a conversation. He wanted to know who this new neighbor was.
Artist Lowell Davis often sat on the front porch of the general store that was from his hometown of Red Oak, which is on Route 66, about 30 minutes east of here. He told his story to people like Larry Cernick.
But when he came back from Texas, where he was an artist for a while, he saw the buildings all falling apart, and he wanted to save them so people could enjoy them. So this was a cornfield back in the 1980s, and he bought it and started moving the buildings in.
Cernick's own home wasn't at Red Oak, but has history.
It dates back to the Civil War. Actually, it was one of the few houses that didn't get burned down during the Civil War.
Larry Cernick and Lowell built this train station when they couldn't find one to restore, but they needed a locomotive. Larry found one and bought it.
I provided a lot of the money, but I have a couple of handymen, Dwight Madsen and Danny Pippin, who do the work. Danny's really great at, he did the restoration on the locomotive. Locomotive came from Agawam, Massachusetts, Riverside Amusement Park.
Besides the general store, Lowell Davis brought from Red Oak the blacksmith shop and a log cabin home. Then he rescued buildings from the rural area around Red Oak, like a feed store, a schoolmarm's house from near Precious Moments, and a one-room schoolhouse.
Elmira School, okay? That was on the farm next to our farm where I grew up. We were a couple miles away. It dates back to 1884. And keeping a one-room country school, there's not very many of them left around, especially dating back to the 1800s. My first year in school in the first grade was in a one-room country school.
A personal connection that prompted Larry Frickenschmidt to pick up the preservation mantle and mission from Lowell Davis. For Frickenschmidt, it all started with the jail and Marshall Hooker's cabin, which he and his son found in bad shape in 2005.
And he used to stay in the Marshall's cabin with Marshall Hooker back when they did reenactments, but the roof had caved in, the floor had caved in, and so we rebuilt that, and then Lowell would come to us and say, hey, how about buying this one here and this one here? And it's a big upkeep because of the fact that after 2 or 3 years, you got to go back and do it again. The lumber that you get today is not like the lumber that these buildings were built out of originally.
That upkeep continues as saws buzz in the background during our tour as crews are working on the feed store.
Preserving these buildings, once they're gone, they're gone. That's it. When I bought that little standard station, it was basically gone. It came from Carthage. It actually was across the street from Muni Park on Route 66 originally.
He also restored the Phillips 66 gas station here. Schmidt has crews preparing the Red Oak Cafe for Route 66 Centennial travelers. It's attached to a trolley car.
Was from Carthage originally. It run off the square and would go out to Lakeside, which is where in the Sunday afternoon everybody gathered on the river.
Schmidt owns 18 buildings altogether now and recently won the John Woodruff Award for Preservation and Promotion of Red Oak 2, the Old Time Reunion Event Center, which sits across from Red Oak 2 as a tribute to farm life and farming communities, and Route 66. Lowell Davis's widow Rose tends to the visitor center in the old Birdsong building, which features his art, from famous figurines to even the floor.
Some of the buildings, they have to cut it in half and they put numbers in it, so when they put it together, and then he put an art in it, like this kind of a floor, you know, it's not like this. So, well, he's seeing all this lug, you know, he doesn't want to throw it away, so he make it like a mosaic.
She says the most popular attraction for tourists is Lowell's sculpture called The Plumber's Nightmare.
And every year, it lived up to the name Nightmare because I had to buy some pump and clean it thoroughly, like every season.
Rose still lives in the house of Belle Starr, whose family had property in Jasper County. It's home to Lowell's paintings, and is where Lowell lived and died. He's buried here at Red Oak 2. Rose says Lowell's art and preservation were both a passion and a mission for him.
Well, his mission is for people to appreciate the Americana village, like the 1930s, which is his favorite era. And it's like telling everyone, like, if you watch the movie The Grapes of Wrath, this is similar to it. Like people, like you're stepping back in time. And he wants to preserve it, especially for the next generation, how America lives before. So in that way, they appreciate it now, you know.
Over time, people kind of joined up and wanted to be part of this, and so they started moving buildings from different areas and donating them. So for instance, the blue house behind us, the Dalton Gang house, that came from Bonita, Oklahoma.
When the Dalton kids were growing up, the mother and the boys lived in that house. That's the story.
Larry Cernick is a resident who bought the Red Oak originals and other buildings to save here, including the most recent addition, the old Jasper County Courthouse.
That's one of the oldest buildings out here, from 1838. It was the original courthouse in 1841. It was just a guy's cabin. It was called the George Hornback cabin.
Route 66 travelers come from all over the world to sign the old courthouse cabin guest book. A pair from Italy dropped by on the day we were there to stroll through the town of yesteryear.
They want to see the old cars and the old buildings, the old architecture, and they want to meet people. When they get to the Ozarks, they realize that the route is not just pavement, it's not just diners, and it's not just neon, it's actually a delivery system to interesting people.
A lover of Lowell Davis art, Larry Cernick fell in love with Red Oak and the lifestyle, now following in Davis's footsteps of sharing its history.
I couldn't think of a better place to live, you know, really. It's just, you know, there's enough visitors to make it enjoyable. You know, go talk to them when they're walking by and tell them a little bit about Red Oak. That's what Lowell used to do.
Visitors like the Eldridges from Kentucky, who were making their way along Route 66 and came here to explore.
We love the old heritage, the history that's behind everything, and just the preservation of the past.
There are no fees, no admission here.
It's just open to the public because it's just our passion. We just do it because we love it.
And Route 66 riders do too.
We feel pride, especially to be an American. You know, this is our roots, this is where we came from, this is where we all started.
We're back. On this Newsmakers, we are taking an in-depth look at local connections in Carthage and beyond to Route 66. Our tour guide and guest is Jeremy Morris, the parson at Red Oak 2 and Vice President of the Route 66 Association, Missouri. So tell us, we saw your home in the video. What does it mean to be the parson
So
at
yes,
Red Oak?
so all of us play kind of characters on the route. You know, we have, like I said, kind of our normal personalities. Then when I moved to Route 66, I didn't realize I'm going to be in show business. And our attraction is a little different than most because we're not a business, we're not a diner, we're not you know, a historical attraction. It's our yards. You're welcome in our neighborhood. So the parson is a kind of a character I created because I live in the parsonage at Red Oak 2. That's the name of the house. It's right by the church. And I'm a legal wedding officiant. I've done about 10 weddings out there under the willow tree. But yeah, they call me the parson.
do people care that it's not exactly historically correct? I mean, you've got buildings that have come from different places,
Right.
so they weren't necessarily started there. Like, you
Right.
know, even like Belle Starr lived in this house,
Right.
but that really wasn't where it was located. We've moved it to preserve
Right.
some of these things.
Nothing was on site. It was a cornfield.
Yeah.
So we preserve buildings that are going to be destroyed a lot of times. A lot of these came from the original town of Red Oak 1, which is about 30 minutes east of there. And then other buildings have just been donated over time, like old schoolhouses, a blacksmith shop, you know, things that were
Yeah.
going to be torn down, but important historically. For instance, just recently, two years ago, we're still moving buildings out there. The first Jasper County Courthouse was going
Right.
to be torn down.
So Lowell Davis wanted to preserve his hometown. Why didn't he just stay at Red Oak 1?
Yeah, well, he left Red Oak 1 after the war, and the place became kind of a ghost town.
Yeah.
Everybody moved out to get jobs in the bigger cities. He ended up going into the military for a minute, and then he went to Texas and became an ad exec. He was always kind of, he was always thinking about home.
Right.
And so when he came back to Carthage, he just took a drive around and found a farm. He's like, that's the farm, and that's where I'm going
But
to
why
start
not
this.
just preserve everything at the original Red Oak, which is a little closer to Route 66, correct?
Well, I don't think he had a master plan. You know, I think Lowell, his creative forces, you know, his juices would just flow, and he would just do something. And I love that he just had the initiative
Yeah.
to build a town. Who
For
does?
years, we've heard about Red Oak too. It's
Right.
very artistic. It's very
Right.
craft oriented. You see lots of visitors at Red Oak too. So tell me, do people just show up and they are from far and away, right?
Sure, daily. Like I said,
Well, the day I was there, somebody was there from Italy.
just
So
walk through my yard. They're from Italy. I've had people not realize that people actually live there and it's not a prop town, and just show up inside my house if you don't lock the door well. I had a French woman just sitting in my living room one morning on her phone. So I told her, bonjour, would you like the tour? And so this happens daily.
yeah. Why do you think international travelers love the Mother Road so much?
Right. For several reasons, I think. You get to see big swaths of Americana. You get to see the cities. You get to see the plains. You get to see the mountains. You get to see the desert, and then finally get to see the ocean. You get a kind of a little sampler platter of different people along the route. And in fact, that's the key. When people get through Illinois, they're still confused. Like, what is this about? It's more than just a road. It's an idea. It's a cultural idea of what America's about. And it's a lot of do-it-yourself folks on the route that are creating attractions, and when they get to the Ozarks, they want to meet us.
Well, so you've traveled the route, and tell us about some of the unique characters you've met along the
sure.
way, because that's part of it, right?
It's a huge part of it, meeting all the eccentric folks. So in this corridor, you can meet. So when Disney came through here 20 years ago to make the movie Cars,
Right.
they met a lot of people along the route. So if you go to the Baxter Springs Visitor Center, you're going to meet Dean Crazy Legs
Yes.
Walker. He's going to turn his legs backwards for you and put on a show.
Inspired Tomater.
That
Yep.
inspired Tomater. That's why they drove backwards in the show. If you go a little further to the Stroud Cafe and the Rock Cafe in Stroud, you're going to meet Sally the Porsche. She owns the place and makes a good plate of noodles.
Okay.
You go a little farther to, you know, for a lot of international tourists, this is a pilgrimage tour, and there's like temple stops, and in some of these stops there's priests, and if you meet Harley Russell in Eric, Oklahoma, you're going to drive through a ghost town on the border of Texas, and you're going to say, what's so special
What's
about
to
this
see?
place?
Yeah.
What's to see here? And then you're going to see one spot called the Sand Hills Curiosity Shop, and you'll know it. I don't have to tell you what it is. You'll see it, and it's covered with signs, and it looks like a temple of Route 66. And you're going to see a guy outside with a long gray beard and a red and white Big Smith overalls, and he's going to beckon you inside. Do it. Don't be
Go ahead
scared.
and go.
Don't be scared. It's part of the experience. You're going to regret if you don't. And you're going to wander inside, and you're going to see a magical world of Route 66 memorabilia and just stuff that he collects. And he's going to tell you about his wife. They used to put on a show on the road. And then you're going to go a little further in, and you're going to see a semicircle of international tourists sitting there, and they're all looking at you, kind of confused, like, why are we here too? And he hands them tambourines and tin whistles, and they start playing music. He plugs in his guitar, and he's going to put on a show for you you're never going to forget.
Wow.
Yeah.
And there's lots of people like that along the
I
route.
would say every town has one or two at least, people you have to meet.
Yeah. I mean, and some of these folks are older. Is there a danger of some of the route's history disappearing?
So the best thing about Route 66 is that it's individual do-it-yourselfers that create these attractions. Also, that's our weakness, because once these people pass, if they don't have children to pass it on to, or something to that effect, or anybody else that's interested or has the funds to do it, these things can disappear quickly. Now, the road's constantly evolving, and it always will, and that's okay. But just recently, we lost the Totem Pole store in Rolla, which was the oldest continuously operated business on the entire route.
Wow.
Tim had to retire at some point, and there was no one to pass it on to, so it's been demolished in the last couple of months.
Aw.
There's a stretch of road outside Miami, Oklahoma, called the Sidewalk Highway, which used to be about 7 miles. In 1923, they only had enough money for 9 foot of pavement. So when you had, and this was the highway, so it was 1-lane highway, so when someone was coming the opposite direction, you had to play chicken and get off of the road. Well, they're saving 1 mile of that, but the rest they're going to cover this year. So there's those stories. On the other hand, there's new people coming in all the time to refurbish. I just found out just recently, and I'm kind of an experienced roadie, that just down the road from me, there's a place I didn't realize was there, the Mickey Owen Baseball School. And it was a 1930s baseball player who started this school. Famous people like Michael Jordan, Charlie Sheen have gone through this school. Well, they have a new owner, and he's completely refurbishing the place. He's created a state-of-the-art steakhouse.
Wow.
And he's also refurbishing all the houses, or the cabins that used to house the students to play professional ball, and he's going to rent those out as apartments, or excuse me, as a place to stay on the route.
And it's along the route, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, so it's always evolving. We're losing
Yeah.
some, but we gain some too.
Do you have a favorite place to eat along Route 66? Because, you know, there are a lot of cafes.
Sure. Well, I mentioned the Stroud Cafe, which is always good. You know, every town I kind of have a favorite. So, you know, I really like Ike's Chili in Tulsa. Will Rogers ate there. It's the oldest restaurant in Tulsa. It's right there on 11th Street, which if you haven't been to 11th Street, some people miss this stretch of 66, and it's my favorite, actually. It's definitely the most improved in the last 10 years, and it's a magical strip with like 50 neon signs.
Wow.
Go to Ike's Chili. Of course, in town, you can't go wrong with a Wilder Steak, one of the best neon signs, I think, in the on the entire route that's been recently refurbished with help from the association.
And even if you're local, you could stay in the Boots Hotel.
People do it all the time.
They do it all the time.
People just want to
The
stay locally.
nostalgia of it.
Of course, just get the experience.
So what should we put on our calendar for events? Katrina Parks, when is that happening? Do we have a date yet?
We have a lot of events next September. We're going to have a joint motor tour between the association and the Jefferson Highway, which is the other major road that comes through Carthage. That's why it's called the Crossroads of America. And we're also going to have a Model T national tour. There's a lot of events in Joplin and Carthage, the Crossroads Festival. There's going to be all kinds of stuff
So
happening.
remind folks of the best place to check for events, because they're all going to be
Yes.
popping up.
Celebrate Mo 66 is great. Also, our site, Missouri66.org, and look at the events page. We're going to start populating that pretty soon. You'll be able to see the entire event calendar.
Excellent. Jeremy, thank you so much for telling us all about it.
Thank you for having me.
And that wraps up this edition of Newsmakers. If you haven't explored Route 66, you'll want to check it out during the centennial anniversary of the Mother Road. Thanks to our guests, and thank you for watching Newsmakers.